Do you know what it feels like to be an outsider, truly invisible, even in a room full of people who share your name, or a version of it? Have you ever felt the chill of exclusion, not from strangers, but from the very ones who are supposed to be your kin? For Nina Alvarez, a quiet 34-year-old accountant in San Diego, this wasn't a fleeting feeling. It was the steady drumbeat of her life, a persistent echo in the grand, echoing chambers of her family's world. They called her the step niece, a label that felt less like a descriptor and more like a brand, marking her as inherently different, perpetually on the periphery. She was the one with no husband, a casual, cutting remark, whispered across tables she wasn't invited to join, as if her worth was measured by a marital status she hadn't yet achieved. And perhaps most painfully, she was not really blood, a phrase that severed any imagined ties, leaving her adrift. Each year, as the holidays approached, a particular ache would settle in Nina's chest. The Alvarez family, a sprawling, boisterous clan, held their annual holiday dinner at a beloved vacation home nestled in the sun-drenched hills of La Jolla. It was a place of laughter, of shared memories, of traditions woven thick with generations. Nina knew this place, not from inside its walls, but from the glossy, curated photos posted online, from overheard conversations, from the wistful stories her late mother had once shared about her brief, hopeful inclusion in the family before her passing. For 3 consecutive years, the invitation never came. The first year, she told herself it was an oversight. The second, a deliberate signal. The third, a confirmation of her complete irrelevance. The final confirmation arrived not with a ringing phone call, nor a politely worded card, but an impersonal group email, sent to a select few, discussing travel arrangements for the annual family reunion, as if it were a private club with a strict membership roster. Nina's name, predictably, was absent. She stared at the screen, the bright pixels blurring. The sting was no longer sharp. It was a dull, pervasive ache, a wound that had festered over years. Her apartment, usually a sanctuary of quiet order, suddenly felt cavernous, amplifying the silence of her solitary existence. A single tear tracked a path down her cheek, not of anger, but of a profound, bone-deep weariness. She had always longed for that sense of belonging, the warmth of a large family, the easy camaraderie, the shared history. Her mother, gone too soon, had been her only true anchor, and with her, the tenuous connection to the Alvarez name had frayed completely. The world, it seemed, had decided her place was outside the circle, forever looking in. But as the tear dried, something hardened within Nina. A quiet resolve, born not of bitterness, but of a profound, unshakable conviction that her worth was not to be dictated by the narrow confines of someone else's definition. If a seat at their table was denied, perhaps it was time to build a new table entirely, one where the invitation was extended not based on lineage, but on humanity, on respect, on the simple, radical act of seeing another person fully. The idea, then, was not merely a thought, it was a seed, planted in the fertile ground of unacknowledged pain and burgeoning strength. It began to germinate in the quiet hours of the night, taking root deeply, silently, until it became an undeniable, revolutionary truth. She had always been the one who went unseen, the one whose presence barely registered. Now, she would make a move they never saw coming, a move that would redefine not just a holiday, but the very meaning of family itself. She would rewrite who gets a seat at the table, not by demanding one, but by creating it, from the ground up, with her own hands, her own will, and her own enduring spirit. The quiet accountant, overlooked and underestimated, was about to become the unexpected architect of her own destiny, and perhaps, the unlikely unifier of a family that had forgotten how to see. Nina's life was a meticulous, carefully constructed edifice of routine and responsibility. Her days as an accountant were spent immersed in spreadsheets and ledgers, a world of logic and precision where numbers, unlike people, never disappointed. She found a quiet satisfaction in bringing order to chaos, in balancing the books, in ensuring every debit had a corresponding credit. This same meticulousness extended to her personal finances. Every extra hour worked, every frugal choice, every penny saved, was a deliberate act, a brick laid in the foundation of an uncertain future. She had no grand plans, no extravagant dreams, just the quiet, persistent drive to be self-sufficient, to never be reliant on anyone else's whims or generosity. Her small apartment, though neat and organized, often felt cold, a stark contrast to the vibrant, chaotic warmth she imagined within the Alvarez family home. One evening, after receiving that final, crushing email, Nina sat alone, cradling a worn photo album. Its pages held fading images of her mother, a bright, effervescent woman whose laughter Nina could still almost hear. There was a picture of her mother, arm in arm with Aunt Elena, a younger, softer Elena than the formidable matriarch Nina knew. They stood on the porch of the La Jolla vacation home, bathed in sunlight, looking genuinely happy. A pang of longing, sharp and visceral, twisted in Nina's gut. This was her legacy, too, however tangential. This was the family her mother had married into, the lineage that, however distantly, connected to her. Why was it so easy for them to erase her? As if in answer, or perhaps in a cruel twist of fate, an online real estate listing popped up on her tablet, an innocuous ad that seemed to mock her solitude. It was the vacation home, the very one. Historic La Jolla estate for sale, the headline proclaimed, beneath a picture of the familiar sprawling facade. Nina's breath hitched. Her first impulse was to dismiss it, to close the browser and push the image from her mind. It was a relic of a past that had rejected her, a symbol of everything she was denied. It was surely astronomically expensive, far beyond her reach. She was an accountant, not a millionaire. But then, a different current began to stir within her. It wasn't anger, not entirely. It was a quiet, almost imperceptible shift, like a tectonic plate moving beneath the earth. A flicker of something new, something audacious. The thought, unbidden, was simple, yet profound. What if? What if she could take back a piece of what felt lost? Not to spite them, not to punish, but to reclaim a sense of agency, to reshape the narrative. The house was a symbol of their unity, a fortress of their shared history. What if she could transform that symbol, not into an instrument of exclusion, but of radical inclusion? The idea, initially a fleeting whisper, began to echo louder, resonating with a deep, untapped reservoir of determination within her. She was not just a quiet accountant. She was a woman who understood the power of numbers, the leverage of patience, the discipline of delayed gratification. She had always navigated the world with meticulous care, and now, that same precision would be her weapon, her tool for transformation. The seed had been planted. Now, it began to sprout, fragile yet persistent, nourished by years of quiet resilience and an unyielding desire for a place to truly belong. The quiet accountant, always in the background, was about to step into the foreground, not to ask for a seat, but to build a table where everyone was welcome, especially those who had once felt like her. The seed of an idea, once planted, germinated rapidly in Nina's fertile, analytical mind. The initial shock of seeing the La Jolla vacation home on the market quickly gave way to a calculated, almost obsessive focus. This wasn't a whimsical pursuit. It was a deeply strategic undertaking, fueled by years of quiet aspiration and an unwavering commitment to self-reliance. She became a phantom, moving through the world with her usual quiet demeanor, but beneath the surface, a torrent of activity raged. Her accounting skills, honed over years of meticulous work for demanding clients, became her greatest asset. She pored over financial statements, analyzed market trends, and scrutinized loan options with a relentless intensity. The house, she discovered, was indeed expensive, but it wasn't insurmountable. It was a fixer-upper, burdened by decades of deferred maintenance, a factor that had deterred other buyers seeking turnkey luxury. To Nina, however, its neglected state wasn't a drawback. It was an opportunity, a canvas for her own vision. She began to liquidate old, long-held investments, carefully timing her sales to maximize returns. Her evenings, already spent working extra hours, stretched even longer. She took on freelance accounting gigs, offering her expertise to small businesses struggling with their books. Sleep became a luxury, meals were often utilitarian and rushed, and her social life, already minimal, ceased to exist entirely. Every waking moment was dedicated to this singular, monumental goal. Her apartment transformed into a war room, littered with architectural drawings, contractor bids, and financial projections. She taught herself about property law, renovation costs, and the intricacies of securing unconventional loans. The process was exhausting, a test of her endurance and her belief in herself. There were moments, late at night, when doubt gnawed at her, a cold, insidious whisper. What if she failed? What if this grand gesture was nothing more than an act of hubris, leading only to deeper financial ruin and further emotional pain? The weight of expectation, not from others, but from her own unwavering spirit, pressed down on her. The fear of failure was real, a palpable knot in her stomach. But then, she would think of the emails, of the casual exclusion, of the years she had spent on the outside looking in. She would recall her mother's fading smile in that old photograph, standing proudly on the porch of that very house. It wasn't about revenge, she reminded herself, not about proving them wrong. It was about proving something to herself, that she was capable, that she was worthy, that she could build a sanctuary where true belonging could flourish. This wasn't merely a real estate transaction. It was an act of profound self-affirmation, a silent rebellion against a world that had tried to diminish her. The secrecy surrounding her pursuit was absolute. She spoke to no one, confided in no one. The Alvarez family, wrapped in their own insular world, remained blissfully unaware of the seismic shift about to occur beneath their feet. They would never have imagined the quiet, unremarkable step-niece possessed such steel, such tenacity. They would never have foreseen that the one they dismissed was quietly orchestrating a move that would upend their very foundation, redefining their traditions, and challenging their entrenched perceptions of worth. Nina, the hidden gem, was polishing herself in the shadows, preparing to shine. The Alvarez family, oblivious to the seismic shift rumbling beneath their very foundations, buzzed with their usual pre-holiday excitement. Aunt Elena, the formidable matriarch, sat at the head of her antique dining table, directing the conversation with an almost regal air. Her silver hair was meticulously coiffed, her silk blouse pristine. She projected an image of effortless control, yet beneath the surface, a subtle current of stress ran through her. Managing the sprawling family, maintaining traditions, and ensuring everyone was happy was a constant, exhausting performance. Across from her, cousin Sophia, Nina's age but radiating an aggressive self-importance, scrolled idly through her phone. Sophia, with her perfectly coiffed hair and designer clothes, embodied the family's casual elitism. She was the gatekeeper, the one who subtly reinforced the family hierarchy, often with a dismissive glance or a pointedly ignored text message. "The La Jolla house is simply perfect for the reunion, isn't it?" Elena declared, her voice carrying a note of self-satisfaction. "So much space, all those memories." Sophia merely grunted, not looking up. "Just hope Uncle Marco actually remembers to air out the musty guest rooms this year. And for goodness sake, someone needs to update the kitchen. It's practically antique." There was a brief, almost imperceptible pause. Sophia finally looked up. "Did anyone hear from Nina? The step-niece?" she asked, her tone dripping with mock concern. The emphasis on step-niece, a deliberate jab. Elena waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, Nina, bless her heart. She's probably busy with her numbers. Always so quiet. We didn't send a personal invite this year, did we? I think she prefers her solitude anyway. Less fuss." Sophia snickered. Less fuss for us, certainly. No awkward silences over the gravy boat. They moved on, their casual disregard for Nina a stark illustration of her invisibility within their world. The conversations flowed, discussing caterers, guest lists, and the trivial dramas of their privileged lives. But then, the phone calls started. First, a hushed whisper among the cousins. Then, a shocked exclamation from Uncle Marco. Finally, a collective gasp from the room. The La Jolla house has been sold, Marco announced, his face pale, his voice strained. Sold? But that's impossible. It's been in the family for generations, Elena exclaimed, her composure crumbling. Sophia's eyes widened, a rare flicker of genuine surprise on her face. Who would even buy it without consulting us? Without giving us a chance? The news spread like wildfire through the family network, igniting a flurry of panicked calls and accusations. The family reunion, their sacred tradition, was suddenly in jeopardy. The emotional attachment to the property was deep, woven into their very identity. Their ancestral anchor, their symbol of enduring family, was gone. And then, the ultimate, unforeseen revelation dropped like a bombshell. The buyer was revealed through official channels, a name that struck them dumb. A name they had so casually dismissed mere moments before. It's Nina, Marco announced, his voice barely a whisper. Nina Alvarez, she bought it. Silence descended, thick and suffocating. Sophia's jaw dropped, her perfectly made-up face contorted in disbelief. Nina? The accountant? It's impossible. She doesn't have that kind of money. This must be some kind of sick joke. Aunt Elena, usually so composed, felt a sudden dizzying rush. Her mind reeled. Nina? The quiet, unassuming girl they had so easily overlooked? The one they considered irrelevant? How could she have pulled off such a coup? A deep sense of unease settled over her, a premonition that the very ground beneath her carefully constructed world was about to shift irrevocably. The truth was stark, undeniable, and utterly shocking. The invisible stepniece had made herself profoundly, undeniably visible, in the most spectacular and unexpected way possible. The revelation hit the Alvarez family like a rogue wave, shattering their complacency and revealing the fragile foundations of their self-importance. Cousin Sophia, a woman whose entire identity was built on her perceived status and effortless superiority, was the first to lash out. Her carefully constructed facade of indifference crumbled, replaced by raw indignation. She stormed into Nina's modest apartment, unannounced, her high heels clacking a furious rhythm against the linoleum. Her face was flushed, her eyes narrowed with a venomous accusation. What is this, Nina? A joke? Some kind of sick, twisted revenge? Sophia's voice rose, shrill with a mixture of disbelief and fury. Buying our house? The family home? You, the niece, who we barely know? How dare you? This is an act of pure malice. Nina stood calm, remarkably so, in the eye of Sophia's storm. She had anticipated this confrontation, prepared for it in the quiet hours of her clandestine planning. Her voice, though soft, carried an unshakable conviction. It's not revenge, Sophia. And it's not your house anymore. It's my house. Legally, unequivocally, mine. She met Sophia's furious gaze without flinching. And my motives are far simpler than you imagine. For years, I was excluded, dismissed, treated as less than. I longed for a place at the table, a connection to the only family I had left after my mother passed. But that longing was met with silence, with casual disregard. Sophia scoffed, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Oh, spare me the sob story. You think buying our family's property is going to magically make us accept you? It's pathetic, a desperate cry for attention. Nina took a deep, steadying breath. Number. I don't expect magic. But I do expect respect. Not because of who I am by blood, but because of who I am as a person. I bought that house not to punish, but to redefine. To create a space where true belonging isn't contingent on a last name or a marital status, but on shared humanity, on kindness, on mutual respect. Her gaze held Sophia's, unwavering. I am not demanding a seat at your table, Sophia. I am building a new one. A table where everyone who wishes to connect, to share, to truly be family, is welcome. Not based on old prejudices or outdated notions of worth, but on the simple act of choosing to value one another. Then, Nina delivered the unexpected blow, not with anger, but with quiet authority. I am hosting a holiday gathering at the house this year, an open house. It's an invitation, not an obligation. You and the rest of the family are welcome to attend, to see what a true home, built on genuine connection, looks like. Or not. The choice is yours. Sophia stood aghast, speechless for once. Her face registered a complex mix of shock, outrage, and perhaps a flicker of something akin to fear. This was not the timid, easily dismissed Nina she had known. This was a woman transformed, radiating in quiet power that was both unsettling and undeniably compelling. Aunt Elena, who had arrived later, drawn by the commotion and the astonishing news, stood silently in the hallway, observing the exchange. Her usual air of sophisticated detachment had been replaced by a raw curiosity. She watched Nina, truly saw her for the first time, not as the step-niece, but as a force of nature. A woman who, by quietly reclaiming a physical space, was boldly staking her claim to her own identity and rewriting the very rules of engagement. A profound realization began to dawn on Aunt Elena, a dawning awareness that her casual disregard for Nina had perhaps cost them all something far more valuable than a house. The quiet accountant had thrown down a gauntlet, and the family would have to decide whether to pick it up or risk being left behind in the wake of her quiet revolution. With the audacious invitation extended, Nina poured her every waking moment into transforming the La Jolla house. It wasn't just a property, it was a symbol, a canvas upon which she would paint her vision of a new kind of family. The house had been neglected for years, its grandeur fading under layers of dust and disrepair. The walls were peeling, the floors creaked mournfully, and the once vibrant garden had succumbed to rampant overgrowth. To anyone else, it was a daunting project, a financial black hole. To Nina, it was an opportunity for resurrection. She started with the structural bones, methodically reinforcing beams, mending leaky pipes, and repairing the weather-beaten roof. Her hands, once accustomed only to the delicate click of a calculator, now wielded hammers and saws. She learned to mix cement, to lay tiles, to sand and refinish hardwood floors, until her muscles ached and her fingernails were perpetually stained with paint and grime. There was a raw, visceral satisfaction in the physical labor, in seeing tangible progress, in literally building her dream with her own hands. The contrast between the house's former life and its burgeoning new identity was striking. It had been a grand, imposing edifice, often cold and echoey, despite the family's boisterous gatherings, a place that facilitated their superficial interactions rather than nurturing genuine connection. Nina was determined to infuse it with warmth, with an undeniable sense of welcome. She chose soft, earthy paint colors, installed inviting, comfortable furniture, and filled the spaces with an abundance of natural light. The kitchen, once sterile and purely functional, became a warm, humming heart, ready to embrace shared meals and laughter. The garden, once wild and untamed, was meticulously restored, blooming with vibrant flowers and fragrant herbs, a testament to care and cultivation. Her transformation of the house was not just aesthetic, it was an emotional journey. Each brushstroke, each planted seed, was an act of healing, a declaration of intent. She was building not just a house but a home, a sanctuary designed to embrace, not exclude. While the Alvarez family deliberated over her audacious invitation, whispers began to ripple through the local community. Neighbors, curious about the sudden activity at the long-dormant estate, started to notice the quiet, determined woman tirelessly working. They saw her arrive before dawn, leave long after dusk, her silhouette framed by the glowing windows of the newly lit rooms. Small gestures began. An elderly neighbor brought her a thermos of hot coffee on a chilly morning. A local hardware store owner, impressed by her dedication, offered discounts on supplies. These were small acts of human connection, far removed from the cold formality of her stepfamily, and Nina cherished them. They reinforced her belief that true worth resonated, even without grand pronouncements. One afternoon, as Nina was meticulously cleaning antique glass panes, she looked up to see a familiar figure standing by the newly manicured rose bushes. It was Aunt Elena. The matriarch looked different outside her usual opulent settings, less formidable, more curious. She wore a simple, elegant outfit, her gaze sweeping over the renovated house with a quiet intensity. Nina simply offered a small, polite nod and continued her work. Elena said nothing, but her eyes, usually guarded, held a flicker of genuine surprise, perhaps even admiration. She watched Nina for a long moment, truly observing the quiet strength, the unwavering dedication, the undeniable love being poured into every corner of the house. Elena had expected a spiteful act, a grandstanding display. Instead, she found an earnest, almost reverent act of creation. The house was not merely being renovated, it was being reborn, imbued with a spirit of generosity that was deeply at odds with the family's previous casual ownership. The rigid walls of Elena's own preconceived notions began to crack, just slightly, letting in a sliver of new light. The day of Nina's holiday gathering arrived, ushering in a crisp autumn breeze that carried the scent of pine and cinnamon from the newly transformed house. The La Jolla estate, once a symbol of the family's entrenched hierarchy, now glowed with an inviting warmth. Lights strung along the eaves cast a soft, welcoming glow, and the carefully restored garden shimmered under the afternoon sun. Inside, the house hummed with a quiet anticipation. The antique floors, lovingly refinished, gleamed under soft lamplight. Fresh flowers adorned every surface, and a gentle melody of jazz played softly from hidden speakers. Nina, dressed simply but elegantly, stood by the entrance, her heart thrumming with a mix of anxiety and hopeful resolve. She was no longer just the architect of this physical space. She was the emotional anchor, the one who had dared to dream of a different kind of family. Initial arrivals were cautious, almost wary. Some family members came out of sheer curiosity, others perhaps out of a sense of obligation, unable to resist seeing what Nina, the overlooked stepniece, had wrought. Sophia arrived early, her posture stiff, her gaze sweeping over the renovated rooms with a critical, almost disdainful air. She clearly expected to find fault, to confirm her preconceived notions of Nina's supposed audacity. "Remarkable," Sophia said, her tone laced with a sarcasm that didn't quite mask her shock. "You've certainly changed things, almost unrecognizable." Nina offered a genuine smile, unbothered by the thinly veiled insult. "That was the intention, Sophia. To create something new." She gestured towards a cozy sitting area by the fireplace. "Please, make yourself at home." The atmosphere was initially tense, thick with unspoken judgments and lingering resentments. But Nina, unwavering in her grace, moved through the house, greeting each person with a quiet warmth, offering drinks, engaging in simple, non-confrontational conversation. She carried no bitterness, no "I told you so" in her eyes. Her sincerity was disarming. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the rigidity in the air began to soften. Younger cousins, unburdened by the family's older prejudices, were the first to relax, marveling at the beautifully restored details and the welcoming ambiance. Children, sensing the genuine openness, chased each other through the spacious rooms, their laughter echoing happily, a sound that had rarely truly resonated within these walls before. A particularly poignant moment occurred when Uncle Marco, the one who had once dismissed Nina's mother as a fleeting presence, found himself standing before a framed photograph Nina had placed prominently in the main hallway. It was the same photo Nina had cherished, her mother and Aunt Elena smiling broadly on the porch of this very house years ago. Uncle Marco's eyes lingered on the image, a flicker of something akin to remorse crossing his usually jovial face. Nina approached him quietly. "She loved this house, Uncle Marco," Nina said softly, her voice tender, devoid of reproach. "She always spoke of the light here, the way the ocean breeze carried the scent of jasmine." Uncle Marco looked at Nina, his eyes clouded with a distant memory. He reached out, hesitantly, and patted her arm. "She was a good woman, Nina. Your mother. A very good woman." It was a small gesture, a simple acknowledgement, but for Nina, it felt monumental. It was the first crack in the wall of indifference, a tentative step towards genuine connection. The house, infused with Nina's spirit of radical acceptance, was slowly beginning to work its magic, transforming not just walls and floors, but hearts. The quiet gathering was no longer just a party, it was an experiment in empathy, a testament to the transformative power of a single, steadfast soul. As the holiday gathering progressed, the initial tension that had hung heavy in the air gradually dissipated, replaced by a tentative, then undeniable, warmth. Nina moved among her guests, a quiet conductor orchestrating a symphony of connection. She didn't force interactions, but gently facilitated them. She encouraged conversation, played carefully chosen music that flowed like a gentle stream through the house, and subtly nudged individuals toward common ground. She had baked traditional holiday treats, their sweet aroma filling the air, and brewed steaming mugs of spiced cider. Every detail, from the comfortable throws draped over the couches to the soft glow of the fireplace, was designed to foster ease and intimacy. The shift in atmosphere was palpable. Laughter, genuine and unforced, began to echo through the rooms, replacing the stilted small talk of previous gatherings. Stories were shared, not just the curated narratives of success and status, but heartfelt anecdotes, quiet reflections, even moments of vulnerability. The younger generation, liberated from the unspoken rules of their elders, chatted freely with Nina, admiring her courage and her artistic eye in the renovation. They saw her as an inspiration, not an outcast. It was Aunt Elena who finally sought Nina out, finding her in the quieter study, gazing out at the twilight garden. Elena's usual rigid posture seemed to have softened, her shoulders less hunched, her gaze less guarded. She carried a steaming mug of Nina's cider, its warmth radiating through her hands. "Nina," Elena began, her voice unusually subdued. This is truly remarkable. The house feels different, alive somehow." Nina turned, her eyes meeting Elena's. There was no triumph in Nina's gaze, only an earnest desire for understanding. "It's a home now, Aunt Elena, not just a house." Elena nodded slowly, taking a sip of her cider. "You know your mother. She had a similar spirit, a quiet strength. We didn't always see it. Or perhaps, we didn't choose to." Her gaze drifted to the framed photograph of herself and Nina's mother. "She used to say, 'Family isn't just about the blood you share, but the laughter you create, the tears you dry, and the space you hold for one another, even when it's inconvenient.'" Elena's voice cracked slightly. "I remember scoffing at that once. I thought it was naive. But seeing you, I realize how deeply I misunderstood her. How deeply we misunderstood you." She paused, her eyes meeting Nina's again, this time filled with a raw, undeniable regret. "We were careless, Nina. Self-absorbed. We took our traditions for granted, and in doing so, we lost sight of the people who truly mattered, the ones who didn't fit neatly into our preconceived notions. I am truly sorry for that. For the pain we caused you." Nina felt a surge of emotion, a wave of catharsis that threatened to overwhelm her. Years of silent hurt, of feeling invisible, began to dissolve in the face of this genuine, heartfelt apology. "It hurt, Aunt Elena," Nina admitted, her voice thick with emotion. "More than you know. All I ever wanted was to belong." Meanwhile, Sophia, observing this exchange from a distance, remained isolated in her cynicism. She tried to interject, to dismiss Elena's softening as weakness, to inject her usual poison into the burgeoning warmth. "Oh, please, Aunt Elena, don't fall for this melodrama. It's just a house, and Nina's clearly trying to manipulate us into feeling guilty." But for once, Sophia's words fell flat, unheard amidst the genuine connections blossoming around them. The spell of her negativity had been broken. The family, no longer swayed by her dismissive influence, continued to engage, to share, to truly see each other. The old hierarchy was crumbling, replaced by a nascent understanding that true family was forged, not by exclusivity, but by the radical power of acceptance and the willingness to truly welcome. The house was no longer just a structure. It was a living testament to the possibility of forgiveness, reconciliation, and the profound, enduring power of human connection, all orchestrated by the quiet strength of the woman they had once overlooked. The crescendo of the evening arrived not with a dramatic flourish, but with a quiet, profound moment of collective understanding. Aunt Elena, her face alight with a newfound clarity, rose from her seat by the fireplace, the warmth of the cider still radiating in her hands. She called for the family's attention, her voice resonating with an uncharacteristic humility. A hush fell over the room, as every eye turned towards her. Even Sophia, though still maintaining a rigid posture, looked on with a mixture of apprehension and reluctant curiosity. "Family," Elena began, her gaze sweeping across the faces, lingering for a moment on Nina's. "For years, we have gathered in this house, celebrating our traditions, our connections. But I see now that our traditions sometimes blinded us, and our connections became superficial. We spoke of family, but in our hearts, we drew lines, created boundaries, and in doing so, we unwittingly excluded someone who deserved to be at the very heart of our circle." She turned fully towards Nina, her eyes glistening. "Nina, my dear, you have not just renovated this house, you have renovated our hearts. You have shown us, with quiet dignity and immense strength, what true belonging means. You bought this house not for revenge, but for reconciliation, not for personal gain, but to create a haven where everyone is genuinely welcome, where worth is measured not by status or lineage, but by kindness, by resilience, by the simple, profound act of caring." A collective murmur rippled through the room. Some nodded, tears in their eyes. Others exchanged knowing glances, a shared understanding dawning on them. "We were blind, Nina. And I, as the head of this family, bear the most responsibility for that blindness. We saw you as the stepniece, the quiet one, not really blood, but you are more than blood, you are spirit, you are grace. You are the anchor we didn't realize we needed." Elena stepped forward, reaching out a hand to Nina. "We apologize, profoundly and sincerely, for our oversight, for our neglect, for the pain we caused. You are not just welcome here, Nina. You are the reason we are truly a family again." Tears streamed down Nina's face, but they were tears of release, of profound relief. She embraced Aunt Elena, a silent acknowledgement of forgiveness passing between them. The rigid matriarch, once so formidable, seemed to melt in Nina's embrace, finding a genuine connection that had been missing for decades. Sophia, witnessing this deeply emotional exchange, found her carefully constructed facade crumbling. Her face, usually so composed, now betrayed a flicker of raw emotion, perhaps regret, perhaps a dawning realization of her own pettiness. She saw the genuine warmth, the heartfelt sincerity that permeated the room, and for the first time she felt truly alone, isolated not by Nina's actions, but by her own bitterness. Her attempts at discord had failed utterly. The family, as a collective, rallied around Nina. Cousins, aunts, and uncles approached her, offering belated words of welcome, expressing their admiration, some even offering their own quiet apologies. They saw her now, not as an outsider, but as the quiet heroine who had forced them to look inward, to confront their own biases, and to redefine what family truly meant. Nina stood amidst them, no longer the overlooked stepniece, but the radiant center of a renewed and transformed family. She felt a profound sense of belonging, not just acceptance, but leadership in love. A quiet victory achieved not through confrontation, but through unwavering kindness and an audacious vision. The house, once a symbol of exclusion, was now truly a home, pulsating with the joyous energy of rediscovered connection. The heart of the family had been redefined, and its new beat was one of inclusion, empathy, and genuine love. The success of Nina's holiday gathering reverberated far beyond the festive evening. It wasn't just a party, it was a profound reset, a foundational shift in the Alvarez family dynamic. The house, once a symbol of tradition and exclusivity, had been transformed into a beacon of belonging, a testament to the power of one person's unwavering vision. It was no longer just a house, but a living, breathing symbol of renewed values. Nina continued to host, not just during the holidays, but for birthdays, for impromptu weekend gatherings, for quiet, comforting evenings. Her invitations were now eagerly anticipated, accepted with genuine enthusiasm. The gatherings became cherished events, infused with an authentic warmth that had been missing for generations. The laughter was louder, the conversations deeper, the connections more profound. Family members who had once exchanged only polite nods now shared secrets, offered support, and truly leaned on one another. The superficial veneer that had characterized the Alvarez clan began to crack, revealing a richer, more compassionate core. The lasting impact on the family was undeniable. They learned to value intrinsic worth over superficial status, empathy over judgment. The casual dismissiveness that had once defined their interactions was replaced by a burgeoning sense of respect and genuine curiosity about each other's lives. Aunt Elena, her transformation complete, became Nina's staunchest advocate, often seen at her side, her face radiating a newfound peace. She spoke openly about the family's past mistakes, using Nina's story as a poignant example of the dangers of complacency and the importance of open hearts. Sophia, initially resistant, slowly, almost imperceptibly, began to soften. She never fully apologized, but her sharp edges dulled, and she occasionally participated in the broader family conversations, no longer attempting to sow discord. She, too, had been forced to confront the power of Nina's quiet conviction, realizing that true strength lay not in exclusion, but in the capacity to embrace. Nina's journey was complete. From an overlooked, almost invisible stepniece, burdened by a difficult past of rejection, she had blossomed into a revered figure, the quiet catalyst for profound positive change. She hadn't just found a seat at the table. She had built the table, redefined its purpose, and invited everyone to share in its bounty. Her quiet strength, her unwavering commitment to kindness, and her audacious act of reclaiming a space had transformed not only her own life, but the very heart of her family. Her story became a whispered legend among the younger generations, a reminder that true family is forged not by bloodline alone, but by intentional love, by shared spaces of empathy, and by the courage to create the world you wish to inhabit. It was a testament to the power of a hidden gem, polished by adversity, finally allowed to shine. So, what defines a family? Is it blood, or is it belonging? Is it tradition, or is it transformation? Nina Alvarez showed us that it is the latter. It is the courage to see, to accept, and to create spaces where everyone can feel truly seen and truly valued. Her story is a powerful reminder that the quietest among us often hold the greatest power to ignite change, to heal old wounds, and to build legacies of profound love and acceptance. Let Nina's journey inspire you. Remember that your worth is not dictated by the narrow views of others. If you find yourself on the outside looking in, dare to redefine the rules. Build your own table. Invite those who truly see you, and welcome those who are willing to learn. Share this story, not just as a tale of triumph, but as a blueprint for how we can all foster deeper connection and build more inclusive worlds. One compassionate act, one open door, one redefined family at a time. Go forth and make your own table.